Quick Dork back again, and today, my friends, I'm coming at you live from my Data Cathedral studios, as always, here in sunny Gainesville, Georgia. I am bringing you Dork Cast episode 40, and ooh, golly, guys, that sounds like a midlife crisis for the Qlik Dork. I got to be careful about what we talk about on this episode, but I think it's going to be a perfect one because this summarizes my life for sure. We're talking about data-driven development. No, we're not talking about development about data. We're talking about how developers can use data to become better developers. So I brought a couple of friends of mine along. One is somebody that probably needs no introduction, although I'll introduce him anyway. Is Rob Wonderlich. Many of you just know him as the hat guy. You might know him as the cookbook guy. You might know him as an easy guy. He's a clicky who bleeds green, gray, and white and was so instrumental in my evolution from an analyst to becoming the Qlik Dork. So, Rob, just wonderful to have you on, buddy. You've meant so much to my career, and it's been so neat to see how what your lifelong work with Qlik has done is being wrapped up in products from Motio. And I've got another friend on here. Ondrej is the Director of Sales and Operations. I know all of you are multitaskers, so feel free to screenshot these things so you can look them up while you're watching. Also, if you want to go ahead and go out to motio.com, you can get to their website and see the tools and products that we're going to be talking. All right, guys, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can talk a little bit. I've done things with Motio before. You guys were at Qlik Connect. What's some of the stuff when we're going to talk about data-driven development, but when you guys were at Connect and there was a swarm of people at your booth, what was the takeaway that they were really like, holy cow, I can't believe you guys are doing this for me?
Yeah, absolutely. And for us, I think we went to Qlik Connect and Qlik Connect. You're overwhelmed with these great ideas, and you have AI and these big initiatives that you focus on. So we took it a little bit different route, and we were thinking, okay, what can we do differently? And we thought, okay, why don't we focus on the small stuff, the developers, and how we can help developers to produce better applications? How can we help them being more efficient? And of course, in Motio, what we do is we build software and we build additional capabilities on top of Qlik. In general, we do DevOps products. But we were thinking, okay, we collect all this metadata, and what can we do to help developer to be better? And that was our focus.
That I need lots of that help. So yeah, I love what you guys do because I need the help, man. So that's great stuff. Rob, I know that's been your whole background is trying to make developers better
Yes.
and help us do things. I think one of the things I got started with Qlik View Desktop, used your stuff. Got started with Qlik Sense on-prem, used your stuff. One of the things that I know I see in talking to people is kind of a fear of change, man. Like they're like, they have to move 5 houses down the street and bring a U-Haul, they get scared. Oh man, I hate the move, right? And it should be exciting. You picked a new house for a reason. You picked a new location for a reason. There's things that drew them to the cloud, and yet developers get a little bit scared, man. Did you talk to developers who you could kind of sense that fear of change in them?
I see that. Yeah, I see that frequently. I've experienced it myself. I mean, there we are wanting to, we have this beautiful app and we want to make a change because we're after a business opportunity. Just a side piece there. When I started my career, it was with a software company and, the software was the product, right? The developers, we were cool because we were making money for the company. And then I shifted to industry, which was great. But I found out that, IT, computer services, data processing, data was a service. It supported the core mission of the business, right? Manufacturing, selling consumer products, whatever. And so therefore, we weren't as glamorous anymore, but we were important. But so we were there to serve business opportunities. So yeah, we got a business opportunity. Let's make some changes to this program. Let's make some changes to this BI app, but then we've got risk, right? And, the bigger the app got, the bigger the perceived risk got. And we were reluctant to make changes. Things bogged down. So therefore, we were not fulfilling our mission. We were missing the business opportunity. So in my mind, having processes and tools to overcome that risk, to minimize that risk or to correct that risk was important to help you move
Yep.
forward. And particularly as a consultant, so some of the tools like QSDA, I developed as a consultant. I'd go into a customer and I needed to figure out things quickly. I needed to do it efficiently and I needed to leave it clean when I left.
Yep.
So yeah, I see that fear, that fear of change. There's some things where you don't want to make mistakes, right? Flying an airplane, for example, mistakes are not okay. Making mistakes in your BI app, yeah, it's okay. You just want to catch them before they go to production, right? And you can make those mistakes during development. You want to know quickly. You don't want to push them to production. So having good tooling lets you move forward and seize those opportunities and be agile, respond quickly. So yeah, I see that a lot. And that's kind of been one of my goals, is to help people overcome that fear of change.
Nice. Dude, I tell you what, I'm an analogy guy. You just made an incredible analogy between flying a plane and having the instrumentation to ensure
Mhm.
you can keep people safe and land, take off, fly and land successfully. So I think I see an analogy here between that and what you started with, Ondrej, of DevOps. DevOps is not a word that I think a lot of people necessarily may use when it comes to Qlik. I think hardcore IT people think of that. I don't know that people think of that so much. So when you were talking about, as we're going to talk about data-driven development and DevOps, what are the pieces that meet that analogy that Rob just shared?
Well, there is, of course, you're correct. If we look at the traditional DevOps, we're looking at the code building, the hardcore software developing, right?
Yep.
But a lot of these principles really apply to AI, can be applied to Qlik, right? So you have certain key elements of DevOps that we apply in our products to Qlik. And that
Okay.
can be creating repeatable, reliable release processes, automate almost everything, keep everything under version control, right? That is your fear of making mistakes, because if you do make a mistake, you can roll back. Of course, building quality in, always try to improve. So if you put some processes in place, don't just stuck with it, but try to figure out how you can do them better. Release as frequently as possible, right? And I think I had my boss here maybe a year ago talking about DevOps processes, and he shared one of the books with you, Dalton. There was a novel style book, and
Yep.
in that book, there is a story where there is a guru who talks about DevOps, and he said, okay, can you deploy 100 times a day? And the guy who was in this position trying to kind of put all the pieces of falling BI project together, he said, there is no way, that is ridiculous. Well, and he was focused on the question, can we do that? But if you have processes in place and you are agile, if the business needs it, can you make 20, 40 deployments, safe deployments per day? And then, of course, continuously improve. Take it one step at a time, make changes, get these processes in place, and then try to figure out how you can get better again. And that goes, of course, from the beginning, from the development, from the coding, building, but also testing is important piece.
Yep.
Rob is specialist, to the release, operations, of course, and then once it is in production, monitoring and understanding changes that are happening or new needs of the business that we need to fulfill.
Nice. And I like that. That's a great synopsis. I know it's hard for some people to understand. The managers are thinking, well, Rob, all you're doing is putting a pie chart on the screen, bud. How hard is this, right? What they don't understand is all the code that may go behind creating flags and doing modeling in Qlik that lets you have the right data to put the right information on the screen fast enough. So one of the things that I learned most from you when I got started that I loved. I had a background in object-oriented coding. When I found your cookbook site and started downloading scripts, it's like, oh my gosh, I can have a function that's foolproof and just keep calling that thing. I loved that idea. So
It goes to
Ondrej,
what
we
Ondrej
talked,
said about repeatable processes. I just wanted
yes,
to put you
exactly.
there. That's what it's, you know, so much of DevOps and efficiency is about creating repeatable shared processes.
Yep. So we could talk about this till the cows come home. People are gonna be like, that still doesn't make any sense to me. Ondrej, do you have something you can show, or do you have some slides we can start putting some meat on these bones?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. My end goal is today is to get to the data-driven development and show you just a short overview of how it looks like in our eyes and what we provide to the BI developer. But I think it is important maybe to give a little bit of background and why it is important and how do we get there, right?
Okay.
And if we think about it, why are we in the business? Why we create a software? The goal is to deliver the most reliable BI implementation possible, right? And of course, meaning Qlik implementation possible.
Yeah,
And
that's a solid goal.
that is a solid goal. It's a big goal as well, right? And so every organization, of course, has a strategy to do that, or should have a strategy to do that, right? And maybe small organizations are a little bit, it's not as important, but as the organizations grow, so you see that, of course, they focus more on the efficiency, the automation, really bringing down the cost and hopefully increasing the quality, the speed, and the delivery of the assets that they build.
Yep.
So, but if there is no DevOps in the environment, there is some issues or some pains that we see with our customers over and over, right? Number one is no branching and merging. And so you can have multiple developers working on the same app, right? Very difficult, of course. They can override each other's changes and so on. So how do you ensure that you can have multiple people working on the same app and not kind of step on each other's toes?
Now that was an easier one when people are working in the offices, right? I can lean over the desk, you know, hey, Rob, I'm going to be working on this right now. Are you in the middle of anything? And Rob could, you know, just poke his head up over the cube. No, go ahead. Or, oh, shoot, it looks like you've got it locked. Can you unlock it? We're remote now. And that old process isn't as easy anymore. And if we had a whole bunch of cubes and people were way down the hallway, that was a little bit harder even then as well. So for a remote environment and a decentralized environment, this is a need that we need that process.
Absolutely. And we speak to a lot of customers and they have teams all over the world, right? So even if they go to the office, it's very difficult to communicate. They are in the different time zones, and it is important to understand and being able to work in parallel, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to lock in this application if somebody works on one sheet and another person works on another, but being able to work side by side, of course, really speeds up the development. Quality issues, well, that's Rob's domain, but I think I'll piggyback a little bit on what he said, that if you catch quality issue before they go to QA, for example, right? There is a certain cost to it. Of course, you have to rework it, you have to make changes. Now, if they go to QA, somebody in QA has to catch it, they send it back, suddenly you're losing time and you're losing effort that you put into it.
Yep.
We don't even talk about if it makes it all the way to production and it's caught by the end users, right? Very bad. Of course, very costly. People start losing trust in the application itself, in the team, and so on. So there is cost associated with the quality issues in assets.
Especially in a BI world, right? It's the CEO who catches an error in a dashboard that they're trying to drive the company from. And all it takes is one time with the lack of trust. And suddenly they're going to start making gut instinct calls instead of data-driven calls.
Absolutely. That's all BI is about, right? Make decisions based on the provided analytics. Knowledge leak comes back a little bit to the team that are decentralized. Many of our customers use consultants. They come and go, right?
Okay.
Where is the knowledge? Where does the knowledge go? Of course, it's leaking the organization. Copying assets. So you have to make copies of copies. Somehow you have a new version and so on. Very cumbersome, pollutes the environment. And of course, deployments, manual tasks, right?
Okay,
So
yep.
how can you automate? How can you capture changes? And the results, of course, process slowdown. It's time consuming, unpredicting, and heightens the risk of your whole operation. Well, we discussed quickly the key elements of DevOps, so I'm not going to spend much time on this. But again, why I want to give this background is the version control is the core for all DevOps. If you need to capture everything, all the changes in your environment, if you don't have a full version control history, you have missing pieces in your DevOps process. And I think that is the building block of core DevOps processes.
And if you're watching this video, check the description on YouTube. I will post the link to my previous Dork Cast where we talked all about the version control software that Motio offers, which is amazing, and will let you understand how can you successfully be in a decentralized environment and yet still have the type of source control that IT knows is a quality process.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, what is important about version control is, of course, no changes to the way the developers or power users work, right? You don't want any checkout, check-in. You don't want them to do anything differently.
Okay.
It's got to be seamless. You have to be able to manage the apps individually. For example, you deploy the whole app. 2 months later, somebody comes back, says, hey, there is an issue with the sheet. Can you roll back just the sheet, or you have to roll back the whole application? With versioning on very granular basis gives us the power to be able to roll back just a very small piece of the app.
And that was huge. Right now, I'd be like, okay, it was 3 months ago. I got QVF 107 on my local drive. I'll replace it, and then I lose everything else that I did since version 107 of my QVF that I got stored locally. Yeah, so that was a crazy cool feature that you definitely got to watch the other video for.
Absolutely. Because we capture everything, you are audit ready. You know who changed what, when, and why within the environment. And we, of course, integrate with the ticketing system. And then analytics over analytics. And that comes back a little bit, capture all the metadata. So we have metadata catalog. Everything that is captured can be searched for. And visualize of the DevOps data in your Qlik Sense. So you can build Qlik app on top of your Qlik, which is very cool. And then it goes back again to the previous video that you mentioned.
So it's like recursive development then?
That's right. That's right. You develop on top of what you captured within your environment. And that's what metadata does for you, right? It is data about data.
Yeah, that my thing to people is always zeros and ones are always zeros and ones without metadata.
That's absolutely correct.
You got to have the metadata or you're just dealing with zeros and ones.
Yeah, they really do provide the context, right? And the knowledge and understanding of what is happening on the back end. So that's what it is.
So go back to that other slide though.
Absolutely.
Because man, you've got me here with the bedazzled by DevJeannie, and you're like hiding the lead there. That sounds really exciting. So I love how you phrase that, bedazzled by DevJeannie. I just saw a post today that I shared from a friend talking about how people think that this is just magic. Like the genie of, well, sure, it's magic if you let us help you.
That's right.
So I like that, and I love the enchanted by QSDA. It's super cool terms.
The DevJeannie, of course, come from the genie from the 70s, but it is also developers genie, right? And that's what we're gonna show today for a little bit.
Nice.
Of course, enchanted by QSDA Pro.
We're gonna get that genie out of the bottle, not keep talking about it in the bottle.
I hope so. At least a little bit. We let her little out, not fully today.
All right.
And the DevJeannie is, of course, was created by Alex Polaroto, by him and his team.
Nice.
So how do you become a Qlik GOAT, right?
Well, you get a really cool hat.
That is absolutely correct. And as Rob mentioned, you want to put processes in place, right? Yeah. And it's all about fast, high level, high quality delivery in reliable manner. Yep. And On the bottom of all of it is talent, whether it is single developer, whether it is talent of your people that you, of course, you have to improve, you have to get better, but talent is important. How do you improve? By deep practice, right? You have to be able to make mistakes, push yourself past those mistakes, correct those mistakes, and improve over time. You have your tactics. You need to understand of the situation and what is happening around you, especially if you're a Qlik developer. What is the context of the app that you're working on? And finally, it's strategy. And that is the tooling in place, the whole support system that the developer and the developer community has to be able to produce the high quality content in a good, reliable manner.
So, Ondrej, I noticed that Roger is holding a racket there as well. So, would equipment, which what I would think of equivalent to our tools, is equipment also important in this equation?
That's a great question, right? The equipment, and Roger relies on his team as well, right? He's great, he's got great talent, but around him, he's surrounded by the people, and he kind of created this tooling for himself, whether it is his coach, his support system, his family, but also he needs the tools. And the tools, in our example, of course, QSDA Pro, it is DevJeannie, it is there. To have the best tools in the game, to be the best, you need the best tools.
Yep. Yeah. And Rob, I'm going to start changing your intro, man. The next time we do is going to be the hat analogy guy. We'll try to start something new.
Very good. So if we talk about talent, right? Rob, Christoph, and Dalton, I'll tell you a quick story. And I told this story to Rob, and he was, he had his cheeks red a little bit. He was a little embarrassed, but we were at the Qlik Connect, and I spoke to these two youngsters from Germany. And they talking to me about Qlik development, and they mentioned Rob. And I said, Rob is part of the team. And here comes Rob in the hallway. And you should have seen these guys. It is like me looking at Roger Federer, right? I'm a tennis guy. They could not stop smiling and laughing. And then Rob spent 30 minutes discussing with them that went completely over my head. And they were just so happy. It was absolutely fantastic. And that is the passion, the talent. That's what gets the community better. That's what really gets the tooling better. And same with Christoph, right?
My first photo at Qlik Connect this year was a selfie with these two guys. These guys are the OGs for me. I still fanboy over the knowledge that those guys have.
Very good. Very good. Now, you're talented, and some people would argue there is no talent. It's just hard work and dedication and focus, right? But deep practice is very important, of course. And deep practice is, again, pushing your boundaries, getting a little bit better. The new boundaries become normal. But it is also important to have tools in this kind of deep practice, because if you have QSDA Pro, you make changes, you run it through QSDA Pro, immediately you get an instant feedback of, hey, I can improve here, right? And that's what is important, is the constant feedback, instant feedback loops to make sure that you can improve, that you have something. Because if I do something and 3 months later, my manager tells me, hey, why did you do this? Well, 3 months later, I have no idea, right? I don't know why I developed it this way. But if you get instant feedback, then you improve immediately.
Makes sense.
I want to mention that making mistakes, because again, I think that's key, right? If you're the circus performer, or use the analogy, or the gymnast, you're going to try that move. You're going to push that move. You're going to push your boundaries. If you have a net, if you have pads, if you have a support. So you're going to make mistakes, but you need that net.
That was one of the first things when I did training. I worked with a lot of customers. I did a lot of training when I was a Qlik customer. And I tell them, look, there's nothing you can screw up. As you're changing screens, you're changing your version of the screen. You're not messing up the code or the formulas. Do the trial and error. For those of us who've been doing it a long time, part of it is realizing I could do this all myself if given enough time. But I've got to choose, do I really like doing code line by line by line by line? Or do I like focusing on the flow of the algorithm, and it's okay for me to use scripts that might have been downloaded from Qlik Cookbook? And I always chose solving a problem for business. I will use the tools that help me be faster and more successful that way so that I can solve the next problem instead of worrying about coding this problem.
That's interesting, Dalton. So I find that I like to develop Qlik dashboards, the visual side, like I use Qlik, right? I click things, I try things,
Mm-hmm.
I make these selections, I go in, how's that look in? Okay, I'm going to drill in here, and then okay, I'm going to clear, I'm going to back out. And so with other programming projects, maybe I take a more structured approach, but I like developing. Let's
Yeah,
just throw that chart up there. Let me try these expressions. And I really like the ability to be able to move back and forth quickly and confidently.
yeah, yeah. All right, Andre.
Very good. And tactics, as a Qlik developer, of course, there are certain things when you work on an app, you should know, right? You should
Yep.
know what were the prior changes. You should know who else worked on the application, what open tickets there are there any known issues within the sheet that you're working in, and so on. So again, understanding the situation. And I think a lot of times, and it is not just in Qlik, but it is in our day-to-day life, is we do things on autopilot, right?
Yeah.
You get something and you just say, okay, I've done this many times. I just make the change, go next. But we don't really understand the context. Does it matter if there is many private sheets in the app that I want to change or on the load script? Can I cause an issue in those private sheets? Who else worked on this? If I make a change or if I make the update that I needed, and I deploy it, do I understand that somebody else did not make a change prior to me, so it sneaks into the production, right?
Yeah.
Do you understand the full context, or are you just on the autopilot? Okay, I need to fix this. Are there any other tickets that are opened in relations to the app? So maybe I can take a look at it, fix it as well, right? So there is a lot of context that can be provided that can be important to not just get into this autopilot, but really engage and get better results, and better workout.
So you're starting to blow my mind here because I figured, DevJeannie was a term, but now you're starting to get me excited because these are all things that I would want to know as a developer when my manager says, "Oh, I just need you to make this one quick pie chart change." Are these things that you're actually able to provide to me while I'm working in my screen?
These are the things that we are able to provide to you.
So it's not just a marketing term.
It is not.
There's going
It
to be
is
some
not.
meat to this.
Yes, yes, yes. I think
Okay.
so. Very good. And strategy overall is the DevOps, right? That is
Yep.
the process that we put in place behind all of this. That's really the tooling, the whole concept of how we build new assets in Qlik, right?
Nice.
And we talked about this. But let's look at the individual capabilities that can make BI developer better. Of course, safety net. We talked about it, right? Without safety net, you're going to be timid. You don't want to make changes. You don't want to try new things. So it is important that you have the safety net. If you start working on an application and somebody else is working on it, it is important that you also understand if somebody else is in it, so
Yep.
you don't step on each other's toes. Understand the impact that you're going to create if you make changes. And if you do create impact, can you roll back to the safety net, but also being able to simply roll back of the pieces that are not needed is important. Insights, that comes back to the DevJeannie. We're going to jump in just a second. But we, of course, with Soter, we can diff on the code level. But how important is diffing on visual basis, right? Understanding what are the differences between two versions of the sheet. Yep. And then finally, BI over BI. And, that is kind of drink our own champagne, right?
Visuals are always impactful, right? I believe in the power of data visualization to help prepare insights. So even just the image you've got over impact analysis, there is kind of a knowledge graph that has to exist in developers' heads. Some are just not able to comprehend it when it goes beyond one or two things, right?
That's right.
I like that image that does get complex. It's not always as easy as just throw a pie chart on a screen.
That would be too easy, too simple.
Yeah.
Efficiency, whether it is development, merging content of two developers into one, whether it is, of course, AI is a big thing nowadays. And then betterment, best practices. Do we follow best practices?
Okay.
Do we have checklists and so on? Do we have constant feedback?
Yep.
So DevJeannie, and I'm going to share my DevJeannie screen, and this is going to be the first one for me, Dalton. I am not a demo guy, okay? So I am preparing you for this. This is going to be my first true mini demo that we're going to do today. So what DevJeannie does, of course, it delivers DevOps in the Qlik UI, right?
Okay.
With Software, we collect all the metadata. But the question is, what do we do with the data? How can we use it to make developers' life easier?
Okay.
So we provide constant or instant feedback and context to the BI developers and power users, and of course, directly in Qlik UI. It really is a concept of data-driven development because you have context of the app, how it looks like, who else worked on it, right there for you.
That sounds great. I got to see a demo.
All right. Are you ready for this?
Show me the demo.
All right. Let me bring this up. I think you can see it now, right?
Yep.
All right. To the visual diffs. Let's jump right into it for you, Dalton. So if I click on this info icon, what I can do is I can go to the diff viewer.
So how did you do that? I've never seen that in Qlik Cloud.
It is magic. It is magic. So it works the same in the Qlik Cloud. I'm on the Qlik Sense premise.
Okay.
But what we have here, I have a little extension. And it is a DevJeannie. It is a browser extension that, of course, works in Chrome or Edge. And it is a browser extension that you can add to your Software product, right?
Okay.
And we integrate between Software, DevJeannie, and QSDA Pro. So what I did is I clicked on this little icon or the info, and that opened up the sheet. And then I also have all the different versions of the sheet since the beginning, since its version.
Oh, stop it.
So here on the left side, I have the current state of the sheet. And then I can pick and I can go to version 5, and that opens the same sheet side by side.
Wow. Okay, you gotta say that's magic, right?
That is magically cool. One of the features in Qlik is alternate states and people being able to provide data in comparison data sets to provide insights. Being able to see sheets side to side and comparing like that, incredible.
And so how it looks now on the left, and then how it looked back in time on the right. That's amazing.
So on the right, I would say that the developer at some point thought, ooh, I'd rather have this mapping view. And somebody said, but I really like the bar charts. That gives me quick insight. Then I can scroll down to the mapping view or something. And so somebody changed based on a user's data literacy level or a user manager's C-levels preference.
That's right. There might have been a request that is tied to a ticket, right? And you see exactly what happened. And you can, I can click on any of these versions and do the same comparison. So as a first step, if something changes, somebody opens a ticket and say, hey, there is an issue with the app, right? You always want to know the previous state. I think that is troubleshooting one-on-one is, hey, what changed? So that is, of course, very important. And in Software, we can do it on the code level, on the script level, but it's, of course, it's much nicer on the visual because you can also see the visual differences between.
Dude, just in showing it as a Gantt chart, I mean, for crying out loud, that's what my customer is going to be screaming on my phone. Last week when I saw the screen, it said this, and I can, okay, well, last week that had to be version 4, as opposed to version 3 that was 2 months ago. So even showing a Gantt chart, that's huge.
That's right. What I can do from here as well is show you exactly what changed, right? And if I want to bring it back to the previous state of things, I will see that the title changed here on the bar graph, and I can merge the versions and I can go back. I can roll back certain pieces of the app.
So you're showing now that's what you've mentioned, the term Software. That's the version control software that we talked about. Again, in the description down below this on YouTube, I'll post that YouTube video as well. for that Dork Cast. And what you're really doing here is you're actually showing me all the metadata that you had. And instead of having to go into Soter, you're just putting this as a visual at my fingertips.
Absolutely. So you can, of course, go to Soter and you can do all this diff directly in the product, but we want to bring it directly in the Qlik UI, right? And then that you're absolutely correct. Soter works on the backend, captures all the metadata, works as a backend for DevJeannie, and then we surface all the data right here.
This is very cool. This is very cool.
Very good. Now, let's take a look at some other fun stuff. We talked about being able to see all the different versions of the object. So with one click, again, I don't have to leave Qlik UI. I see all the different versions because we version on granular basis. All the different objects within the app are versioned individually. So I can see all the different versions of the different artifacts, again, directly in Qlik UI, right? Very powerful. I also have QSDA Pro integration here. So if I want to, I can go and open QSDA Pro. I already did that before. So here is the app that I've been working on. So I can go directly to there, see all the flags that are related to that app. Okay.
And so, yeah, let's not skip over this because
this is not my expertise. You have to be careful. I'm the expert here on the. I cannot show much of a QSDA Pro. I have to be very careful there, right, Rob?
Yeah, no worries. But I'll jump in with a little bit of QSDA Pro later.
Okay.
Okay. So let me go back.
Write that down. I'm going to get a demo from the guy.
Write it down.
All right.
What I want to show is DevJeannie and the usage statistics. And I think that's very cool, right? This is DevJeannie and the Qlik app analytics. Okay. So this is DevJeannie, but this is how we surface the app analytics, the context for the developer. So you have it directly in Qlik UI.
Okay.
So you have some basic information, of course, about this app, when it was last changed, who modified it, when it was last deployed, last QSDA Pro inspection. But as a developer, that's all great. What is really important to me is what is this app relates to in my production environment, right? Okay. Or in everyone's stream. So here you see this app is 2 versions ahead of the endpoint app, right? So I have it in my personal work, and then I am working on an application that somebody requests to make changes in the production environment.
A reminder to myself, if I went on vacation, ooh, you've never published this.
Absolutely. Or you're trying new things, right? And you are not happy. And so you don't publish it, and then you are two versions ahead. Also, what it can mean is one of your colleagues went in and made some changes to the app.
Okay.
And then suddenly, if you decide to deploy this, are you deploying something else with the app that you don't intend to deploy? So there is 2 versions that were created on top of that are ahead of the production app. We have some analytics here. Total, we have 6 different versions. As you saw on the timeline, I don't have any unique developers because I was as an administrator, but it would tell you how many developers worked on the app, right? And then it gives you summary of the 180 days, how many times this app was deployed, how many tickets it is connected to. We also connect to the external ticketing system like Jira Service now, whatever. So you know that there are 3 tickets in Jira. 2 of them are still open, 1 is closed. If I'm a developer and somebody requests there is a new ticket, I can take a look, not just on my ticket, but the previous ticket as well, right? I might be more efficient. I can resolve both of the tickets before I request the deployment to production.
And I would be able to look at those tickets and see what those tickets were for?
Absolutely. In Soter, we have integration directly to the ticket. You can, when you make a change and you reference the ticket, it gives you description of what you did in Qlik directly in the ticket. So it is all interconnected.
That is crazy. We talk a lot about data literacy, the lack of data literacy. I would be able to look at tickets and find out, oh man, You know, that Rob guy, he's got bad math, he's doing bad formulas. It was a formula expression here, or that the questions keep coming in and like, I really should change this chart type to make it simpler for users to be able to comprehend. You know, they're struggling with the scatter plot or the box plot. I need to make that something else. That's crazy cool to be able to have access to the information while you're looking at the screen.
Absolutely. And then we have the
Scroll down
QSDA.
there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you got your QSDA Pro flags, but Rob's going to show us what that means in a second.
Yes, he will. He will.
I got it written down here.
Can get away from it. Now you can see the last date, and you also see number of sheets, right? You can see public, community, and private sheets. With Soter, we version not just public, but also community and private sheets, of course, bookmarks, private bookmarks, and so on.
Very cool.
Now, what was supposed to happen, and it was there yesterday, was the usage and unique users of this app. Somebody restarted the servers on me overnight, and then I lost it. Okay, we created some data yesterday. But why this is important and what it shows is unique users using this app over time. Why that is important? We can have a lot of requests about an app that is not being used. Is it a data literacy problem? Is it a problem that there is another version of similar app that is being used? Why are we putting so much effort into the app that is not being used very widely? On the other hand, I'm a developer. This is a finance app that is being used very highly. A lot of people go in there and use the data. I need to be careful. I see that there is some private sheets, there's some community sheets. If I make a change, can I impact the production app the users created these sheets?
Mm-hmm.
So it does give you the context of the usage of the app over time. And you can also see trends, right? Okay, this app has not been used very much. It peaked, now it's going down. Why is that? Do we not provide the data that the users are looking for? So it does give you a lot of context, not just who worked on the app, how many iterations, what problems are there with the apps, are there any tickets that are related to this app, but also what is the usage of the app in relations to the other app, right? So it just gives you the context that you need. We also have a lot of OEM providers. So if I come here and change the production app to a different app, I can do that, and it gives me the statistics of a different endpoint or different production app, okay?
Wow.
So I can do a little bit of magic and really, because that's what you're interested in as a developer. I'm not interested in how is the app used in development environment. I'm interested how it's being used by end users in the production.
Absolutely. Yeah. Knowing the adoption, knowing the impact. If I've got no adoption and I've got 18 outstanding tickets, it's understandable why they're not using the app. Right?
Absolutely.
They've moved on. We may need to go do retraining. You know, once we've actually fixed things, we might need to remarket the app to people and remind them that it's out there.
Correct.
Crazy cool. And it's beautiful visually too.
Looks good. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. So this is the DevJeannie, the context for the developers. That's what I wanted to show. That is the new thing that we brought to the Qlik Connect a little bit before. And we thought, yeah, let's give the metadata some good usage and help the developers, not just help our customers to have a good, reliable overall process behind their Qlik, DevOps process behind the Qlik, but let's also help the developers to be more efficient and build better quality stuff.
And what I love is it's not a separate product. I don't have to leave what I do for my living, which is develop screens like this, to go out to something else and then have to come back and forget why I was even there. As an extension, that's crazy cool. I'm working away. Now I need insights. I can bring it up. I'm assuming I hit X and then that thing goes away and I'm back doing my job.
And I think you hit on something very, very, very important. That is, a lot of our customers, they have, of course, their true developers that are focused, that's their job, right? And they don't mind going to Soter and doing some deeper digging. But we also have customers that have power users, people that sit in the business that create or change things. And for them, this is great, right? Because it is all in the fingertips. Whether they don't need to go to Soter to look at the previous versions and the changes. They can do it from there. They know all the usage. They can do the visual dipping and so on. So it really brings all the information to you, whether you are very savvy BI developer or whether you are more of a power user, and it can still help you to do better work.
Dalton, I just wanted to respond to what you said about, clicking X and going back to your world. No, you don't have to do that. This is not a pop-up. This is a companion side panel. So you can just go to the left, Ondrej can go to the left side of the screen. He can start editing things. You don't have to close that panel. Like you said, you're not going somewhere else. You can leave it up there and do your work.
So if I were to go to a different screen, does it change? Like if there's a different sheet that I pick on the left, would the side panel on the right be responsive?
Let's see.
Yeah, it will be. At this point, what Ondrej is looking at is the app view.
The app view, that's right.
You were looking at the app view.
But if he was at the sheet, if he was at the sheet view, then it would respond, yes.
Okay, gotcha. Very cool. Yeah, we talk to especially enterprise customers about driving their meetings from the data. And we want them using the charts in the meeting room as opposed to screenshotting, putting in PowerPoint. This would really, that side panel on the right, you could drive review meetings with users and developers right from there. I hear you. I know you feel like there's constantly errors. There's only been 2 tickets and they were solved in 15 minutes. Right? Okay, let's take that out of the way. Now help me understand where that idea is coming from, because you're not entering tickets on that screen or the app, right? It's not always changing. It changed 4.5 months ago. You just never went back in to use it, type thing. So you could actually drive meetings and reviews with the side panel, because that's the information you need in the meeting.
Absolutely. It's all at your fingertips, right? I think you're right. I didn't think about this use case, to be honest, but if that is what you do with your business, I think
because otherwise it would be, I'm having a meeting with Rob to discuss this. I've got to go out and grab that information. I've got to go find it. I'd go into Soter, I'd pull how many versions, I'd pull when, I'd build a PowerPoint chart about that stuff. We have the meeting and Rob's going to ask me a question of something I didn't prepare in the PowerPoint. And then we say, okay, well, let's meet again next week for lunch again. It would be endless. You could drive your review meetings from the side panel.
All at your fingertips.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, we're gonna quote you on the website on that. Thank you, Dalton.
You feel free to do that. Yeah, I'm all about, like, every decision, it needs to be data driven. And if we're gonna tell business users they should be driving their meetings from data, you know what developers and power users should be doing? Driving their meetings from the data. I love it. I love it. This is fantastic.
Very good. Rob, would you like me to pass it to you?
Sure. All right. I want to talk a little bit about QSDA Pro. So, Ondrej showed DevJeannie and Soter. They cover the entire development lifecycle, and QSDA Pro is part of that cycle. It's focused on the quality aspects of an application. And we were talking earlier about fear of change. Like, am I going to make the change? Am I going to break something? How long is it going to take me to do it? What kind of overhead do I have to go through? And kind of perversely, the more successful you are, the greater the fear becomes. It becomes sort of exponential, right? Your app, you're getting more and more value added to your app. It gets larger and larger. And now you get more and more fearful. And people say, this is great, I want more. So let me just focus in a little bit about how QSDA Pro can help you with that. So firstly, errors. So I've got this bike shop sales app. I'm going to load up this analysis. So QSDA Pro is going to surface any errors you have here. So I got an expression syntax error. So why is this important? Because as our app gets big, and I make a change to a variable, to an expression, a
Yep.
field, I change my data model, I may break something. That's not because you're a bad developer. That's normal, right? But you
Yep.
want to catch it, as Ondrej said, before we go to QA, ideally, and especially before we go to production. So we don't want to be afraid to make changes. We wouldn't want to be afraid to make mistakes from those changes. And we just want to know what those errors are and surface them and fix them. So here's an expression syntax error. I go in, I look at this particular flag that comes up. So by the way, advice in QSDA Pro is expressed in terms of these flags. And we currently have about 40 different flags that we test for. But I'm going to go
Well, let's
back
not
to
skip
this.
through this too fast. You're saying
All
that
right.
you run through the app as opposed to me changing a variable in a load script and having to remember the 95,000 places in charts, on the charts that could be conditional. You're finding the expression, evaluating the expression, and I could figure out in chart 55 that's conditional, this expression is wrong.
Correct. So let's
That's
just
crazy.
start with the
That's
error
crazy
first and come
cool.
back to your other scenario.
Yep.
So, I've got this expression syntax error. Where is that error? What is it? I'm going to go fix it. Okay, it's a bad field name. Click on this, get some more information. But importantly, here's the hyperlink. I go right into the app, right? And now I go in here into the context. And of course, it's running at demo speed, and I can see, there's my chart. I'm going to go ahead and fix that.
Yep.
All right, so I'm just going to go in there and look at that thing and say, oh, here's my KPI, and yeah, it's got an error. I'm going to go ahead and fix that. How did that happen? Well, maybe I did a field rename in the script and that didn't propagate forward. It happens, right? No problem. Just fix it. Come back here. I can go ahead and mark this as resolved for my colleagues so nobody else worries about that. And eventually I'll do another analysis that will show that that error no longer exists. So I want to be able to be agile and quick. I want to be able to not make mistakes. Some of them are subtle, like a missing key value, right? I got to look at that. Hey, I've got some data that, I've got a key in the fact table that doesn't appear in my dimension table. I can drill into that and more find out.
That's
This
crazy.
idea, yeah, of impact analysis, like these errors, it's not only is these errors in my base sheets, but are they in my community and my private sheets as well? So I made a change. Did I impact my end users? Fields, you mentioned making a change in the script. So let's say somebody says, you know what, we want to not use territory anymore. We want to kind of change to this concept of rolling up by division.
Yep.
How are we using territory in our app right now?
Wow.
This is probably the wrong, let's see. This is right after this. So here I've got, territory description, territory code. Okay, here's, all right, it's territory description. I want to know how am I using that? Right, I can just filter to this and I can see that that's in one table. It's used on 2 out of 5 sheets in my app. And more importantly, it's used out of 3 out of 35 visualizations. Okay, so now I can see, well, where is it used and how is it used? And I can start getting information. I may be part of a larger discussion where somebody says, we're thinking about changing this. What are we going to change? And I can say, well, this is what we're going to change in this app. And I can go ahead and export this to Excel, this little report here, attach it to the Jira ticket, say, this is what's going to have to be changed if we follow through with this change. So
That,
the power to be
yeah.
able to have a quick toolkit to make changes, to handle ad hoc requests, to be agile and confident at the same time. Another one of my favorite features, I have lots of favorite features, but one of my favorite ones here is the idea of performance. So we also get apps, they don't perform so well. Users have concerns. Back to your question about, or your analogy of somebody saying, I've got this problem, there's tickets, and you're saying, well, let's look at the objective data. We don't have tickets. Let's look at the objective response time of every chart. And we have it here in this calc time distribution.
Yep.
So with QSDA Pro, we look at each chart and somebody says, that sheet is bad, right? That sheet takes forever. We can go in and look at that sheet, see what charts are on it, what's the calc time of each individual charts. So I've
Wow.
got a table here that takes 6.7 seconds to calculate. Well, why? What's going on here? I can see, I got
85
some,
line nested if.
pardon?
I said an
Yeah,
85 line nested if.
right, which we will flag. But I want to get some insight here. I've got
Okay.
four measures. Oh, I'm an
Wow.
experienced
Yep.
guy. Some of these, oh, that first sorted value, that's probably it. But let's get some objective data. I'm going to click this little chart deconstruction here, and it's going to go calculate each measure individually. All
Wow.
right. And it's going to tell me any flags that I have on that as well.
Dang.
So I can see here, the big killer in this one is this one here, the measure. So if I'm trying to improve this chart's performance, I now have some focus. This is the first one I should look at. It's taking the majority of the time. And I also have some advice potentially about why that is slow.
That
So
is
again, it's all
that
about
is
having that
crazy
toolkit.
cool. And I love how you just roll through these like they're old news because you've been doing this a long time. This is stuff
Yeah.
that's make or break, right?
Yes,
This
another make or break one is the data model size. So long history QSDA started way back when, around 2009, when I was a consultant, and we had to try to fit things in these little 32-bit servers. So
hmm
getting rid of unused fields was important, and there wasn't any way to do that natively with the product. So, fast forward to 2025, we're still doing that today. Now, our criticality or the importance of getting rid of unused data has to do with performance and capacity charges. Right up in cloud, we're charged with app size. So
Yeah,
why do we want to have?
what's old is new. There was a day, like when Qlik came out in 93, the reason it can be so performant is, memory was super expensive and everything was highly compressed. Once we started rolling this out to where this stuff is pretty much virtualized for on-prem, you'd be like, well, I can spend time trying to figure out why this thing is slow, or I can throw more CPU and more memory at it. And that stuff was cheap. You just keep throwing stuff at it to solve the problem. Now with going to the cloud, you kind of need to focus on that stuff more. So since you brought that up, I'm going to bring up a real world case and see if you can help my friend. I got a friend, Rusty. Hey, shout out to you, Rusty. We're going to talk about the problem we talked about yesterday. They're looking at a situation on-prem, it would roll through build QVDs, easy breezy, will work like a champ. And they looked at what the QVD size is. They're looking at moving to the cloud, and they're experiencing kind of a build memory issue. How would they track the build memory size versus the QVD size? What would be something that would catch that? Does QSDA Pro look at build size versus QVD size?
It does. So it reports on it. So the build size, you're talking about reload memory,
Yep.
which would be the peak reload memory as defined by Qlik.
Okay.
What is the peak amount of RAM used during the reload? Now, if you think
Wow.
about, reload, right? Sometimes we're creating temp tables. We have big tables. We're then reducing the size of those tables through keeps or joins. And then the final data model is probably smaller than that peak reload memory. So the peak reload memory, yes, is reported right here on QSDA. So for any app, and this is Qlik Cloud on-prem, it all works the same. It's all
Okay.
neutral to QSDA. And I can see what that reload memory is. So as I adjust that script trying to reduce that reload memory, I will see that number go down. So if I have a target or if I have a problem, we talked earlier about your friend's problem, and sometimes you're up there in cloud and it says you're exceeding quotas. And the way around that is to do a limited load of your app, right? 1,000 rows.
So even if a customer still doesn't have their on-premise environment,
Mhm.
and they want to be able to use QSDA Pro, and they're like, gosh, I should have bought this. I should have had this months ago to save myself the headache after I'm moving. They could use this and then turn on a limited load And so let's say that we turn that on and we're going to do data at, 10% of my size. Then what would I do to compare things then?
So here I've linked to a blog post on my website, clickviewcookbook.com or clickcookbook.com called
So are
Help
you
My
saying that
Cloud
you're a genie
Loads
and you
Exceeds
saw
Quota.
Rusty's problem a long time ago? Like
Well, I did
before he
because
wrote about
Rusty's
it?
not the only one who's had that problem. I've had that problem. So others. So I thought, yeah, let me share my solution, which
Okay.
is to go ahead. And so it's kind of detailed here, but it's not complicated. The idea is that, just do some of this analysis work, reduction work with just fewer data to get under your quota. So,
Okay.
1,000 rows. Then you can start doing things about getting rid of the data or changing the size because these things are all going to be proportional, right? If I
Yep.
load a limited amount of data, if I load half my rows, I'm going to use about half the memory. And if I can then start tuning that to get rid of unused data or
Okay.
modify my load script, I'm going to see that go down proportionally. Eventually, I'm going to know that on a relative sense, I'm below my quota, and I
Okay.
can then go ahead and do the full reload.
Nice. So it's not just looking at the QVD size, you're looking at that peak reload. And like you said, so Rusty, the idea would be turn this thing on,
Right?
limited load some proportion of how many rows you've got, and you'll not only be able to guess, hey, it's the peak memory is 1.26 times the size of my QVD. You'll actually see the peak memory. Guess if you were loading half, you're going to double that number.
Exactly, exactly. And then when you're ready to reduce the size of the final data model, QSDA Pro can help you in that and identifying the unused data. So going back to this example here, I can see I have a almost 600 megabyte data model, but over half of it is unused. So I want to get rid of that data. Unused data is fields that are not referenced in any chart, nowhere in the front end. You can
Okay.
remove these unused fields from your data model with no impact to the functionality of your user experience, right?
So
So this is
now,
really just
so
extra data.
this is a point I know I had a fear originally many years ago. Like, if I remove that field, who knows if an end user wants to do that in the future? And if I've removed it, I'm going to forget that it even existed. How do you actually remove the fields that were unused?
Well, you can actually never load it in the first place. You can comment it out, which is not a bad way to do it. I usually comment it so you can see that, quote, you've removed it. Like you said, Dalton, if somebody later says, what about that field? Okay, I'll take the comment off. But a great way to get started, and the way most people go about this, is to drop the fields at the end of the script. And QSDA makes this really easy for you. First, I want to point out that the unused field analysis here considers not just base sheets, but all the user's private content as well, including bookmarks, right? So if anybody's using it anywhere, we're going to declare it used, not unused. So you can safely use this tool.
Nice. And that's so two important things, right? I want to come back to both of these. The
Mhm.
important thing is when you look at being able to say, hey, I want to remove these, it is commenting things. It is not removing, it's not yanked out. If you need to turn it back on, you can turn it back on. The other is I have a gut feeling that people might use this or might be using this. I can't see their private sheets, so I better leave it all in there versus we've got empirical evidence saying that nobody is using this on any of their private sheets or in any type of expressions or charts that they've changed. So you're using empirical evidence to say, hey, this app has now been out for 6 weeks, 6 months. If it's not being used by now, it's probably not going to be used. Get rid of it. So,
Correct. But there is some subtlety to that, and there's some nuance that I can offer you here.
okay.
Uh, let's say we decide, yeah, I want to get rid of these 78 unused fields. I can do that very quickly in QSDA by going into this tool script generator and I can go to the drop fields tab
Yep.
and select all those fields. And this is going to generate a Qlik script drop field statement for me.
Yep.
Okay, to drop all those 72 fields and regain that, reclaim that 400,000 megabytes.
I like
So
that
I can
comment
just,
there to remind yourself, why was I doing this again?
yeah, so I can just copy to this clipboard. I can go to the Qlik script, paste it in there, and reload. Or, you know, like you said, maybe the subtlety is there's a little more nuance in the real world. So I'm going to come back here in the drop field because some of these fields maybe they want to keep. So I
Okay.
want to point out that the value in dropping fields or the payback is the memory size, not the number of fields.
Right.
So if I'm going to do some triage here, I probably want to focus on the largest side. So I can sort my list here by
Mhm.
bytes and say, yep, sales order ID. And I can start going through and getting rid of these ones, due date, line discount. Okay, you know what? Unit price, somebody might want that later. Okay, you're right. I'm working on my gut here. I can tell you today nobody's using it, but that could be a future field.
Yep.
So you don't have to drop everything and you can provide some focus here in your triage, So now I've saved 253,000, 253 megabytes
Yep.
already by
Yep.
going through. And when I get down here, right, to the small stuff, it's like I'm not sure if somebody's going to use this, but it's small stuff. So I'm not going to spend my time today
Right.
on that. So you have
Right.
some options here. We also point out other optimizations like auto numbering keys, recommending auto numbering keys. So just going ahead and
So you're
generating
actually
stuff.
showing the build to address ID is a unique thing that you might have millions of,
Mhm.
and it's 26 characters. You can auto number that and you'll save this amount of bytes.
Correct, correct. And here we're showing it on the field level. We also show that back here in the flag level under resources. Keys can be auto numbered.
Wow.
Also have
Each one of these little dots is like hours and hours and hours and headaches.
yes,
I
yes.
mean, each one of these dots is really, really important.
And notice that they're also these dots here, these little pills are color coded as an error, a warning, or an info flag, because some things like key can be auto numbered. Let's talk about expression syntax error. That's an error, no doubt.
Yep.
Keys can be auto numbered. Is that a warning or is that an info
Yep.
flag? So best practices and so on. And these are customizable, the levels for each flag per the
Really?
installation.
Okay.
Right. So you may decide that, it's critical to us, like we will never allow a synthetic key. That may not be moved to production, right? We're gonna flag that as an error. And then back there in DevJeannie, we can say things like, you have this many error flags. So you have some control over things.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. You may say there's something that, Rob has declared a warning by default, but that's just info to us because we allow this, right? We don't worry about it. So you can have some customization that you can use to feed back into DevGeannie that says, pass fail based on counting things like your error, your definition of error flags.
The ability in a decentralized environment, there's still going to be some center of excellence, some group that kind of tries to establish some governance around this playground environment that's letting end users build their own sheets.
Mhm.
They can govern what these pills are for their environment because they might say, hey, in our environment, unused fields are an error. We want those to be taken out from every app. In a small environment, hey, what's one or two apps with a few fields? We know that those developers will clean things up. But in a self-service environment where they might be using Qlik data product to just go build new apps on the fly, we might want to elevate that. So that's crazy cool that you provide this kind of customization for a center of excellence to change what in their environment those things mean. Your analogy of these things not being DOS but pills to cure my headache, that's not lost on me either, man. Yeah, we're changing it to the hat analogy guy for sure.
But
Yeah,
Dalton goes a
yes.
little bit deeper with the flags across the organization, right? Because we understand with with Soter and with QSDA Pro, what flags are being created, or what assets are being flagged with what flags.
Yep.
You can also, with the BI over BI, when you create your Qlik on top of Qlik, you can understand, okay, our end users are making these, or end users, our developers or our power users are making these mistakes over and over. Do we need to put some kind of education for them? Can we improve as an organization overall? Or are these the new things, or these are the best practices that are being always mistreated? Do we need to do something with the end user community or the developers community or power user community to educate them to improve in these areas, right? So again, the metadata that we collect can help you improve your whole Qlik implementation.
Yeah. Can I right click on there and go right to a Qlik Dork YouTube video to show you how to fix the error?
That's right.
Yeah, actually, you sort of can. So
Stop. I was teasing, Rob. You've already thought that through. Are you kidding me?
well, not a Qlik Dork, but we do take you to a help that explains, what's going on with these flags.
Oh my gosh.
And gives you advice on how to, how to resolve it, right? What does this mean? What should you do about it? So yeah, we could start linking to Qlik Dork in here.
Dude, that's crazy. See, Rusty, he not only read your mind, he's read my mind as well.
Yeah. So we do have comprehensive help, context sensitive help throughout the product that's going to take you into our guides for telling you a little bit more about what this means and giving you some advice.
Wow. That is crazy cool. You really have thought of everything, man. Like you've been there, done that, you've made the mistakes, you know what it takes. I mean, you're making this available to people.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I'll take that compliment because the truth is I did build this for myself. This was built from the tools that I built for myself as a working consultant. So these were problems that I had as a Qlik developer that I solved for myself and then I'm sharing with others.
And if you're hearing that, take that to heart, right? We all want to become better developers. And when you hear somebody like Rob say, I still make these mistakes, don't beat yourself up over the fact you might still be making mistakes. We're all trying to solve more and more business problems. And the more things that we're involved in, the more likelihood of us forgetting one little thing. Having this available at your fingertips is like having 10 assistants at your fingertips who are doing the things that might be time consuming by hand. And this is automated. I mean, crazy cool stuff, buddy.
Okay. Can I tease you with a little bit of what's coming up?
Oh, no way. No way. I'm going to here, twist my arm first and then you can share.
All right. So the 3.4 release, which should hopefully ship by the end of July. I got some new things. So static reporting, you may have seen this as a great little product out there. Qlik Cloud Report, very nice thing done by a consultant to share with the community. It's one of the app analysis. So that's something we've been thinking about for a while too. Sometimes people have this need to have the static report that they can archive as a PDF or that they want to share with people, their stakeholders, or that is a requirement of their corporate governance. So we'll be rolling that out and then kind of experimenting with customers about
scroll down. So this is like a printed dashboard of all of that metadata that we've been talking about through all the different things.
Yeah, so using QSDA as a licensed user, we can navigate through here and we have some interactivity with filtering and so on. Okay. But what I showed you here is sort of a static report of snapshot of that data that you can then, sort of send out, if you will, to other stakeholders or archive in SharePoint or something as, documenting the app at that point in time.
So this generates it and you can save this as a PDF?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Crazy cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I would probably require that people, have that and check that in.
Yeah.
Prove to me that you run it. Don't tell me that you ran it. Prove to me that you're in.
Yeah, so the other interesting thing is that we have a lot of people. So QSDA has an API available, and we have a lot of customers that have put QSDA in their pipeline where they're just triggering these things through their CI/CD pipeline. And I imagine that many of them will want to just generate that report as well. put it in the file system or SharePoint or something.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
part of the release process. So, the whole report thing gets mixed reviews from people, but in those environments where you have to do it, it's painstaking to have to do it manually. And of course, it's not necessarily that accurate. So I think some customers will really, really welcome this. Other customers may just shrug at it.
I think the level of governance of just prove to me that you did this, right?
Yeah.
We're all adults. I trust that you did it, but prove to me that this stuff has been run and that you really did fix errors, right? If they go in and check in their version of code and you were telling them they got 85 expression errors, it's not going to be any wonder to me why our end users are reporting errors on screens.
Right. And this external report allows us to somebody outside of the QSDA environment or to make this an artifact document that is stored with the release process.
Very
That this
cool.
was the condition. So another cool thing I'm excited about is, we have these flags and best practice like repeating expression. So if I open this up here, it's saying this expression is repeated 3 times, max order date. We recommend that you create a master measure that would, kind of resonates with
Okay.
most Qlik developers. Hey, if I, don't repeat myself, all right, I should be using a master measure. I'm doing this over and over again. And if I were to click on the help link here, it would tell you that, it's limited to that. And, you should create a master measure. So what would you do? You would go out and to the app, you could click the link here, hyperlink to the app. You would go create a master measure. You go into edit, you create a master measure, then you come back here and you go to each one of these objects that we're using the native expression, right? And edit and change it.
To the master measure.
The
Yeah.
master measure, right? And then you may mark this as resolved here, just do that. Or, yeah, you got this new thing here. Fix this. Okay, going to go out, check and say, can I do this? And say, yeah, okay. Here's the changes I'm going to make. You want to make a new measure. I'm going to call it last order date.
Come on, man.
Yeah. You know where I'm going, right? And then I get the field still, and now this will apply button, and I can maybe exclude some things. No, I knew there's something special about this one, but I'm going to just take them all.
And this is coming, or is this there now?
This is coming. This will be shipping in the next release.
If you don't pull this next release in whatever time they release it, like 3 seconds later, you're crazy. You
Well,
gotta have that.
yeah, so this will be in there. I think we're still working through some details. I think I'm going to, as an opt-in, there'll be a feature flag that you can turn on in the
Okay.
configuration. Say I want to try this because I want to get some more real world experience with it. But now, okay, if I go click this thing here and go out to the app, no, okay, oh, last order date. I'm sorry, it is that one. So I changed the last order date right there. So they're
Yeah.
done, right? I can also undo that and say, no, I didn't want to do that. So now I have those guys changed.
That is wicked awesome, man.
Yeah. So that's coming up here. And we're looking at what we can change safely. If you have the Soter product, of course, Soter is going to automatically version the changes for you. So you have that record as well, that attribution and that backout ability. And we also hope to have, maybe not in this first release, but soon thereafter, direct integration with Soter that you can ask Soter to schedule these changes as a batch, as opposed to doing one at a time, which might be something that people would prefer.
You kind of skipped over that as well. The integration. I really commend Motio for the way you guys have taken individual products that solve different aspects of DevOps, and you have really done a great job of integrating them so that it is a platform. And it's not like QSDA Pro operates in its own world outside of everything else that you're doing. That ability, and I think you guys already have the functionality. As I check something in, I can have it kick off QSDA Pro for what I just got done checking in.
Absolutely.
And know immediately, Dalton, you dingbat, you just broke stuff. right? You just made it a whole lot worse. So that I automatically know rather than me having to go out and check. And I think you just keep up in the game, right? Being able to do all these things is great, but being able to visualize it right there at the developer's fingertips, that is magical stuff. Like this is going to help make better developers. It has to.
Yeah, it is about pushing the envelope, right? I think that's what the team does well. And of course, adding Rob and Alex and all these very bright people to the team is they have visions and they understand the ecosystem, and that, of course, really helps to drive the development and the vision of where can we go next, right? And you
Yeah.
see all these changes that are happening. First, of course, QSDA Pro was not integrated.
Yep.
DevJeannie or Qlik was not integrated, right? But we're going on this path of integration. And of course, you can use QSDA Pro on its own, but it's way more powerful if you use it in the whole DevOps.
It's all part of a thing. For those of you who are out there and this whole DevOps thing might be new to you, Qlik fits into the real development world, right? It is not just a visualization tool. You've got formulas and expressions. That's code. This is a real coding system. We've got great partners like you guys that are making this an enterprise-wide environment, right? There's a fear I saw in customers. Rob, you mentioned a fear of change. For IT, their idea of governance for so long was you submit a requirement document to me, signed in triplicate in blood. I'll build it over the course of 6 months. I'll hand it to you, and we're going to call that version 1. We're done. But now the world is those business users are developers. I'm building coding for them. They are now developers, not just end users anymore. And that's scary for IT guys. The ability to see this and have governance so that we can support that decentralized world without impeding it is phenomenal. You guys are making that all possible. So I thank you much. Any last words you'd like to share, Ondrej?
Yes. One more thing. Can I do a quick plug-in for a webinar coming up next week?
You go ahead and do a quick plug.
In 2 weeks, sorry. So in 2 weeks, we mentioned Christoph Schwarz, right? As one of your buddies as well. On July 24th, so we merge our strength with Christoph Schwarz as well and his guided tour. So that's another product that we just released onto the market. And on July 24th, we're going to have a webinar where Rob and Christoph will present together on this webinar. Christoph is going to focus more on the guided tour, and Rob is going to focus on QSDA Pro. And yeah, if anybody wants to join, go find us.
Well, I know I'll be
website.
there. When I share this on LinkedIn, you be sure and you put in the comments, hey, go ahead and take your plug that in there.
I'll send you the link.
Any last words from you?
Well, my career has been about making customers successful with Qlik, and many of my customers are now developers, developers of Qlik. So I consider my customers as well. So the tools that I develop, that I'm proud of working with, are about making developers and business users successful with Qlik. Qlik's a great product. We are just helping them be more successful with it.
Nice. That's one of the things, buddy. I'm going to show a little love to you. Years ago, it was all native in Qlik, and Qlik started going to open APIs with Sense, and that was a big difference from Qlik View. And dude, you're one of the early adopters of that. You were there with server-side extensions, trying to figure all that stuff out. And it's crazy to me that 15 years later, in my seeing you, you're still coming up with new things every day. So you keep doing that, my friend. There's people that are out there that you're helping, the new people as well as the people like me who've been there forever. Keep opening their eyes. Keep doing that. Guys, it's been fantastic having you. For everyone else out there, I sure hope that you have a great day.